I have here with me Joan Rogers, who is Executive Director of Kinsella Magnet Schools of Performing Arts, and Eddie Duran, the Artist Director of Kinsella. Welcome. So glad that you're here with us today, and I'm so excited to hear more about the Kinsella Magnet School of Performing Arts. And first of all, Joan, would you just tell us a little bit about your mission and how you got started?
Well, we're 5 years old now, and it started with Eddie, who is the artistic director of the school. Went to a magnet school conference many years ago out on the West Coast and learned about how, in particular, magnet schools that are in the performing arts out on the West Coast were forming nonprofits that in essence were education foundations that were being formed just to support the school. With the thought in mind that if budgets got tight and things changed, those nonprofits would be able to help with a funding stream so that programming for the students would not be impacted.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So we went to a conference, a Magnet Schools of America conference, and we took a workshop, and we heard from schools in Texas and California and Maryland, and they were talking about how they had established a non-for-profit to support their endeavors. Not a lot of people realize it, but VAPA schools, so visual art performing arts schools, are the most expensive schools. It just costs a lot of money to run those programs. You know, whether you're putting on shows, you constantly need supplies. So we heard some folks from those states talk, and they talked with passion, and we were sold on the idea, and we were really at that time, this is like, maybe 6 years ago, because our organization, Kinsella Arts Incorporated, has been in existence for about 5 years now, so maybe like 6 or 7 years ago, and it took about a year to a year and maybe 2 years to really do the research, do the homework, talk about commitment, what it really meant to open up our very own not-for-profit, and it was definitely more than we had thought. We weren't expecting it to be as in-depth as it was, but we had some good people who supported us, with the legal matters as well, and after a couple of years, we put it together with an advisor. That advisor said, you should try to find one point person who could support your mission and support with grants, and we interviewed a few people, and we found Joan. She was one of the people we had interviewed, which was a special point because we were talking about, who's going to be kind of our point person out in the community, not in the school, but our non-for-profit point person, and it had to be somebody who, was passionate about kids and about arts, and, Joan kind of had that on her resume, and when she spoke about it, we were like, she's the one. So, the community, she was really our first community person, and from that point, just reaching out, and we, it kind of as grassroots as you can get, really one board member at a time, having them get to know us, and the board started to grow, and, we started to talk about, where was the need, specifically, because in a school there's so much need, right? And so where was the need, and yeah, it's been great. It's been great. It's 5 years. And we just had our second kind of major fundraising event. We had a wine tasting and a beer tasting, and we had a good crowd that came out. It was great. So it's all starting to, the synergy's starting to come together. That was about 7 years ago. That's how it all started.
That's great. That's wonderful. And we talked a little bit earlier about going from a neighborhood school to a magnet school. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
So, this is, Kinsella Magnet School of Performing Arts is like the little engine that could. Identified, during a time when, really Hartford schools generally was really being investigated in terms of, Dr. Adamowski, the superintendent at that time, was really talking about redefining the schools and every school having their autonomy and every school being able to identify, where they want to go and the direction that they want to go in. And so, you had a family at Kinsella, a neighborhood school. You had a group of teachers there, and it had been a arts magnet school for a couple of years. So it went from a neighborhood school to an arts magnet school, and then the third year we became a performing arts magnet school. And that's kind of when everything started to change. Our physical education is dance. So we are able to satisfy that standard through dance. We introduced drama as a core component. So most schools you might have, you might have art, music, and PE, right? So we have, musical theater, drama, vocal performance, instrumental, stagecraft, production, digital theater now, and really creating a program that is so appealing that students from all over Hartford and from all over want to come. And once those components started to happen, and those became opportunities for students, really exciting opportunities where we train students and feature over 100 shows a year. I know that sounds crazy, but we produce close to 20 productions every year, and each production gets anywhere from 4 to 8 runs, and when all that goes on stage, it comes out to about 100 shows, more than 100 shows, and it's absolutely incredible. But that's how that's how
I think the important thing to note, though, is before it became a magnet school, when it was a Hartford neighborhood school, the students weren't thriving. They were scoring in state tests in the 30th percentile, only in the 30th percentile, and then after becoming a magnet school, within just a handful of years, it was up until what, the 80th percentile?
Yeah, we reached up to 82.9. Yeah, Joan, I'm glad you mentioned that, because a lot of people might think, well, okay, so you went from being a neighborhood school to being a magnet school. Okay, so you got a whole new group of students. It's like, no, we kept those students. Wow. We kept those students, and we diversified our student body as an 8th grade group, kind of graduated on. Now we're pre-K to 12, but back then we were pre-K to 8. As that group went out, we'd bring in a more balanced pre-K. But those students who were in those grades were the neighborhood schools. And that year alone, we scored above 13 points on the Connecticut Mastery Test. The year before that, it had been 0.2, and the year before that had been 0.9. Suddenly, this performing arts magnet school started to thrive, and you could see it academically and
the scores.
And the scores.
Well, and I think to note also is there's so much documentation and evidence that speaks to student engagement and parent engagement and the impact of that on student achievement. And like Eddie said earlier, when parents can come in and see their kids, whether it's a music concert that they're playing, like the strings concert, or it's a musical theater production, it gets them more engaged in the school because they're seeing these things that their kids are doing, and they're loving it. And for the kids, I've worked with education systems in Connecticut before I worked with Kinsella. There's an energy in that school. Those kids, I mean, you're not seeing behavior problems very much because they want to be there. They're very invested in their own education because they're engaged in it. And I think that's why the scores went up as quickly as they did, because the students are fully engaged in their education. And I'm in the school a lot. I don't, it's just an energy that I've not felt in other schools. So I think when Eddie went out to that conference 7 years ago and was able to forecast what the future could have been, he was absolutely right, because right now, as we all know, in the state of Connecticut, we're still without a budget, and we're a Hartford school, which means that we're a Hartford Magnet School, which means that our primary funding comes through the City of Hartford, the Hartford Board of Education, And that is not in a good place right now either, with Hartford having recently considered bankruptcy. So it's kind of a double whammy to be a Hartford school in Connecticut right now. But by having this nonprofit, we're certainly not funding teacher salaries. I won't go that far to say we're doing that, no. And that's not our mission. But we are keeping certain programming for the students intact that might not be so in this economic reality that we're living in. So in our Hallmark program that Kinsella Arts Incorporated has brought to the school, and we're in our 5th year of running it, is what we call the Family Literacy Workshops, and they're geared at students in kindergarten through grade 2. We host 6 evenings a year from fall through spring. One night we do kindergarten and 1st grade, and the next night we do 2nd and 3rd, the groupings together, those 2 grades. And it is literally a program that has made such a difference in helping parents know how to teach their kids reading strategies. Because one thing about our school is many of the parents, because 50% of our student population are Hartford kids, many of our parents have not been to college. So they, they don't necessarily even know how to teach their children to read. And there's so much evidence that speaks to reading, 20 or 30 minutes a night at least with your kids, and how that correlates to greater school success. And there's also correlation between students that don't read on grade level by the end of 3rd grade. There's, projecting that out into the future, there's a high correlation with incarceration. So it behooves us all to make sure that our children can read, that they're literate. And this program, the kids don't leave school. We provide after-school care, so the parents don't have to worry about meeting a bus, or because our kids come from 49 different zip codes, so the parents don't have to worry about going home to get their kids to come back to Hartford. The kids stay at school. We have an after-school program. We provide them a snack. When the parents come from work, we provide dinner. We provide childcare for any other younger siblings that might be with the parent, so that that parent or parents can focus on that one child who's in kindergarten or 1st grade or 2nd or 3rd, depending on the night that, the grade level of the night that we're offering the workshop. And they learn strategies to engage their child in a book and in reading. And that has had a huge impact.
Yeah, and just think about that. So, we'd had this incredible success, right, from the 37th percentile all the way up to almost the 83rd percentile, right? And we started to ask the question, okay, well, where's the need? So we went to, our teachers, the board of Kinsella Arts Incorporated, the not-for-profit arm of Kinsella Magnet School of Performing Arts, certainly two different organizations, 2 entities. And they said, well, let's ask the teachers. We went to the teachers, and the teachers really said, you know what? We need our parents to read with their kids. That's what we need. That's what we need. So we went back, and that's a huge challenge right there. That's a huge challenge, because a lot of, public education funding has to go specifically to the student, right? Specifically for the student. So here we were able to use, some funding that, we had received to support this idea, and that's exactly what we did. We talked to the teachers. We said, okay, we're going to have this program. Okay, what are the obstacles? Well, think of one obstacle. Okay, they have to get on the bus, and then they have to get off the bus, and then their parents are going to have to drive back. Some of these families come from as far as Enfield, Ellington, right? So they'd have to drive back. It's like, okay, well, let's hold on to the kids then. We'll give them a snack. They can do their homework. Parents will catch up around 5 o'clock. Awesome. Okay, so we took that obstacle out. Well, then dinner, right? Everybody knows. Get a group of people, provide dinner, everybody's gonna be a lot happier, right? So let's all eat together. Let's break bread together. Okay, awesome. So we ate, we took care of that. And that's kind of gone through some phases as well. Then, okay, well, what do we really want to provide? Well, we want to provide about 45 minutes of instruction with a teaching artist. So we bring in Leslie Johnson, Tom Lee, some other teaching artists. We use certainly people from the school as well. I've contributed. And we're going to provide a 45-minute workshop on how mom, dad, or grandma, grandpa, anyone in the family could read with this child at home. And we're going to show you how to do it. And then if you have another child, younger siblings, right, we're going to provide childcare for that sibling so that mom, dad, family member, you could really spend 45 minutes reading with this child specifically, right, in K, first, second, or third grade. And so they go through that. At the end, they get a book because kids who have a home library statistically do better. So they get a book to take at home to start a library or to continue. They get milk and cookies at the end because, again, it just makes them feel good, right? And that's what it's about. There's a vibe. And Joan was alluding to that before, right, Joan?
I think what's very interesting, too, is this has been grant funded, and we thank our funders for providing the grants for this family literacy program. And part of that is that I put together a parent evaluation and a teacher evaluation, too, of the program. But the parent evaluation has been very revealing. Parents over 5 years, and like Eddie said, it's constantly new parents that are doing this program because their kids are moving up in grade level. Parents, have consistently said, oh, I thought teaching my child to read was just sitting next to them at night with a book. That's not teaching your child to read. Yes, you're sitting with a book, but there are really reading strategies to engage a child in a book. There's questions, open-ended questions that you can ask your child that will get them engaged in the book, that will help them look for clues in the story. There are just ways to engage students, children in literacy that isn't like second nature to parents. That, they need to be shown how to do this. And the teaching artists are amazing at how they do this. I mean, the first time I witnessed a workshop, I mean, my kids are grown and out of the nest, and I went, wow, I wish that I would have been shown that as a young parent, and it's resulting in higher student achievement. So thus far, that is the major program that Kinsella Arts Incorporated has brought to the school and funded for the school.
And that's all part of the family literacy workshops.
Yes.
Everything I just described, right?
That's what we call it.
Yeah.
We do 6 sessions a school year.
And we get, we try to get people, parents to come out. We work with the teachers. We try to identify students, like which students, like who, like let's call that parent. Let's try to get them to come, right? Let's get them to come to 3. So we have 3 sessions for each of those grades over the course of the year. And if they come to all 3, they get included in a raffle. It's really fun, and there's tons of excitement about that. And they get a tablet, and we raffle off some Barnes & Noble gift cards as well, and that's great as well.
Yeah, and if there's anyone out there that wants to come and witness what these workshops are like, our first set are scheduled for November 13th and 14th, beginning at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
At the
so they're
school.
Open to the public?
Oh,
then?
yeah, you can come.
Absolutely.
You can come.
Okay,
sure.
It's seeing is believing. I'm telling you, you really start to see a community of people.
Readers.
And students, kids who start to appreciate it. They're really appreciating the reading. I'd say more than anything, that's what we're trying to communicate during that is,
And then at the other end of the spectrum, we'll talk about our high school students and what Kinsella Arts Incorporated has done for them. Is actually a program that hasn't cost anybody anything except time and coordination. As I said earlier, many of our students, high school students, are first generation college bound. So the whole college process is completely daunting to them and their parents. Writing a resume, which is required for college applications these days, is something that they've had no experience with, and parents aren't really qualified because of their background to help them with that skill. Interviewing skills is another thing that they've not been exposed to. So we, through our board, because our board, we have board members that come from the major insurance companies in Hartford, like Aetna, the Travelers, the Hartford. We are about to bring on a new board member next week who's with Pratt & Whitney. All of these board members that are of the Greater Hartford community, they serve as mentors at the high school, and we do like 2 days of resume writing, where they sit with 1 or 2 students, and we have different paperwork we put together ahead of time that shows the things that should be in a resume. But to just hand a document to a student and expect them to understand what you're looking for is very different than having a mentor work with you, like for a school period of time, which is what, about 45 minutes?
That's about right.
And then give them homework, like, now go home and refine this, and I'll see you next week. And it's not their teacher. And for a lot of kids, just to feel that investment in them from somebody they don't even know, that's from the Greater Hartford region, and then that same mentor comes back and does interviewing with them, teaches them good interviewing skills, talks to them about dressing for success. So that's what we're doing at the high school end. And we have a dream or a desire to for what we want to do for students in grades 4 through 8th, and it's about math or numeracy. We're trying to put that program together to help the students and their parents, because many parents now feel that they can't support their student beyond 4th grade in math. That math has become so complex.
Right. That is true. That is so true.
Right. So we kind of want to offer the same kind of program in numeracy to support parents, so they in turn can support their student. So we're working on.
That's our next step, I think. Like 4th to 8th grade, might be 3rd to 8th, depending. We might get a little overlap there, but it's such an important piece for us, not only to serve that population, because we're obviously serving the lower grades, 3rd grade down in the high school, but with the math to support those teachers with those concepts and those new strategies of instruction. And we already have the model, so pretty much following the same model we have for family literacy night, but we'd call it family numeracy night. And same thing, we'd hold on to those kids, they'd stay after, and more or less this is, we know that much, we know that model works, so we're ready to just apply that with numeracy and reach out to those 4th to 8th grade families. And I'll say this, I think it'll be even more challenging. I don't know why this phenomenon occurs, but as students get older, parents tend to just be, I guess, less present. I know that sounds crazy, but by the time they get to high school, it's almost like a little hands-off at that point. But we really want to engage those 6th, 7th, and 8th grade parents, and bring them into the school and get that dialogue going, get that conversation going. Students are taking higher level maths. You could have a 7th grader taking pre-algebra at this point, they're taking geometry in, 8th or 9th grade, we just want to support that. That's our next big step.
That's great. It's wonderful. Yeah. You mentioned that you have students coming from 49 different zip codes.
I would say it's right in there. I would say it's definitely between about 43, 44 to about 49 different zip codes. So they come from all over
the state of Connecticut.
Inspiring. All over Greater Hartford. We have had students from outside of Greater Hartford come in as well. They really just have to provide transportation into Greater Hartford, and once they're in that county line, then they're able to take public transportation to the school. But yeah, I gotta tell you, it's in many ways it's just utopian, because you see all these faces. You see, we had our cultural heritage potluck dinner last week, and it's absolutely inspiring. I love being there. I love taking photos and videotaping the whole experience, because it just gives me a lot of hope. You get people from different backgrounds, different, socioeconomic backgrounds. And once, the unifying factor is the arts. So once they're, immersed in that, in our environment, in our familia, right, that we have painted boldly on our wall. You can't come in, you can't miss it. You know, I think they really feel like they own the school and they're part of the school, and I think there's a real sense of ownership.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of our students travel 1 hour one way to get to school, and they're more than willing to do that. So 2 hours a day on a bus so they can get to school.
And I'll be giving our board members or our visitors a tour, and I'll see a student and I'll say, hey, where are you from? You know, and they might say, you know, I'm from Ellington, or I'm from as far off as Canton, or yeah, way down even Coventry, East Hampton, you know. And I'll say, how long did it take you to get here? And they'll say about, 45, 50 minutes. I say, what could possibly make that worth it? You know, and it always comes back to the vibe, to the opportunities, the things that I think define the school, you know, specifically, you know, comprehensive training, those areas I had mentioned before, you know, cultural exposure, seeing shows, which is another area that we're going to our non-for-profit with as well, is, you know, how are we going to support, you know, cultural exposure, you know, kids going to see shows, right? So they could talk about shows and having these authentic experiences, you know, deeply cut, probably our deepest area in terms of cuts has been in cultural exposure. And then, of course, arts integration, using the art as the vehicle to deliver academic content, so you could engage students in such a way that they're having fun while they're learning, and they're, you know, just super present, you know, during the instruction, you know, and you know, that's really when you think about the mission of the non-for-profit. The mission of the non-for-profit is to financially support comprehensive training, cultural exposure, and arts integration at Kinsella Magnet School of Performing Arts. It's one sentence. I've said it so many times over and over, and that is the mission of the organization. You know, to support, and the benefactors are the students, and the you know, sustaining these programs, you know, to sustain and support those three areas.
Wow.
And we're so thankful that we have. I think more schools should do it in terms of, you know, really taking control of their. God, I think about 5 years ago, and if we hadn't, you know, 6 years ago, because we had some road bumps, you know, like the legal stuff really was holding us up, and we could have quit. And I think we didn't because we had, at that time, there were a lot of parents on the board. Believe it or not, our board is mostly made of community members who don't even have kids in our school. And they're, you know, they're
But that wasn't always the case.
That wasn't always the case, right? So, you know, it did start off with those families who started and supported. But I'm so glad we, you know, kept doing it, because here we are. Everybody knows the economic climate right now, you know, and you know, there's no way, at least right now, that Kinsella Arts Incorporated, because it is so grassroots, you know, we're still, you know, we're only in our 5th year, could kind of fill in all the holes from all the cuts. But there are things like the fact that we still have family literacy night. That certainly would have gone to the wayside, you know, and here it is. It's still there. We still got it going. We have our high school, college, and career support program, and so, yeah.
It sounds like you have a great program, a great model that that other schools could take and learn from, and
absolutely.
And
we welcome. I'll tell you this: we would welcome anybody to come to see any of the family literacy nights. That's at the core of the school's philosophy, and I think this organization as well is, you know, because everybody, you know, everybody benefits when we work together. That's so, you know, anybody could come to Kinsella Magnet School of Performing Arts. It's kind of an open door policy, and really have a tour, look around, or be part of our board.
Do you want to share your website, your web address and phone number, so that any of our viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely check us out on Facebook, Kinsella Magnet. We put all our photos and videos on there. We actually live stream our shows. and that's very exciting right now. Certainly go to our website, kinsellamagnet.org, or you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter as well. That's the school. Now, and then I was going to say, do you want to tell them about this? You want me to tell them about the not-for-profit as well? Okay. So absolutely, because this is the thing, is these two organizations work together. So check out kinsellaartsinc.org, and you could also check us out on Facebook too. So we also have pictures of the programs there on our Facebook page. So check it out.
Wonderful. Thank you, Joan and Eddie, for joining us today. And
thank you so much for having us.
Wish you the best.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.